before I tell you a little bit about my little gal over here, we found something that we got a long time ago, and it's an email, I believe. It probably goes back a few years. But anyway, it's entitled Advice from a Retired Husband. And it is important for men to remember that as women grow older, it becomes harder for them to maintain the same quality of housekeeping as when they were younger. When you notice this, try not to yell at them. Some are oversensitive, and there's nothing worse than an oversensitive woman. So anyway, the story thereafter goes like this. My name is Dick. Let me relate how I handled the situation with my wife, Darlene. When I retired a few years ago, it became necessary for Darlene to get a full-time job along with her part-time job, both for extra income and for the health benefits that we needed. Shortly after she started working, I noticed she was beginning to show her age. I usually get home from golf about the same time that she gets home from work. Although she knows how hungry I am, she almost always says she has to rest for half an hour or so before she starts dinner. I don't yell at her. Instead, I tell her to take her time and just wake me when she gets dinner on the table. I generally have lunch in the men's grill at the club, so eating out is really not responsible. I'm ready for some home-cooked meal when I hit the door. She used to do the dishes as soon as we finished eating, but now it's not unusual for them to sit on the table for several hours after dinner. I do what I can by diplomatically reminding her several times each evening that they won't clean themselves. I know she really appreciates it, as it does seem to motivate her to get them done before she goes to bed. Another symptom of aging is complaining. I think, for example, she will say that it is difficult for her to find time to pay the monthly bills during her lunch hour. But just remember, boys, we take them for better or worse. So I just smile and offer encouragement and tell her to stretch it out over 2 or even 3 days. That way she won't have to rush so much. I also remind her that missing lunch completely now and then wouldn't hurt her any, if you know what I mean. I like to think tact is one of my strongest points. When doing simple jobs, she seems to think she needs more rest periods. She had to take a break when she was only half finished mowing the yard. Can you believe that? I mean, that's really declining. I try not to make a scene. I'm a fair man. I tell her to fix herself a nice big cold glass of freshly squeezed lemonade and just sit for a while. And as long as you're making it for yourself, you might as well make one for me too.
That's hilarious.
I know that I probably look like a saint in the way I support her. Really, I'm not. Saying that showing this much consideration is easy. Many men will find it difficult. Some will find it impossible. Nobody knows better than I do how frustrating women can get as they get older. However, guys, even if you just use a little more tact and less criticism of your aging wife, she will be your best friend. And then as time went by, Dick was admitted to the hospital on February 7th of a perforated rectum. The police report says he was found with a Callaway extra long 50-inch Big Bertha driver. You know where that went. Up his rear end, with barely 5 inches of the grip showing, and a sledgehammer laying nearby. Darlene was arrested and charged with attempted murder. The all-woman jury took only 10 minutes to find her not guilty, accepting her defense that Dick somehow without looking accidentally sat down on the golf club. Anyway, that is sort of the overview of our retirement. And speaking of retirement, you know, we have been so blessed with a fantastic retirement, quite frankly. We entered into retirement, I think, as about as average as anybody could enter into retirement. we right away moved to Detroit Lakes from Fargo. And shortly thereafter, as many of you are aware, she became associated with her crazy family. I'm not talking about my son. There's other crazy family in this room. Anyway, but before we get into that, in fact, I think Kathy or Lynette should talk about her experiences with Jasper's Theater, because it's been a major part of our life for a long, long time now, and it's been a very rewarding thing for us to be in. But going back to when we were kids, for example, I think I first saw her that I can remember. I was about 13 years old, and I was working for a guy west of Ulen. That's our hometown. And I was in the field, sitting on a little B International tractor. And Darlene and her parents and family lived just up the road, not far from where I was in the field. The road adjacent to where I was working led down to the south branch of the Wild Rice River. And while I was looking off the side of the tractor, here comes this little gal with a fishing pole over her shoulder. And I'm sure a can of worms in one hand, and she's walking down to the river to go fishing. Now, to my recollection, that is the first time that I think that I knew who she may have been. So she and her family, her sister, two sisters, and a brother, lived not far from that location. And we have fondly known that location to be known as Snooze Hollow. And it became known that way because she had several uncles living down in that low bottom down there. And they were mostly in the hay business. They were a great bunch of people, and I worked a lot with them. But anyway, as time went by, they were in the Felton School District at the time, and so when they moved to Ulen, then needless to say, they went to school in Ulen, and that's where I got to meet. She and her sister Dolores, was in my class. We graduated together. Darlene was a couple of years behind us. And so I think she was probably 14 or 15 when we started dating. And that went on until I graduated, and then I went into the service for 4 years. Darlene when she graduated, went to school, college, and into nursing school. And after I got out of the service, I went to California for a year and came back, and shortly thereafter we got married. And not too long after that, we decided, in fact, I got a good job, the kind that I was looking for, because my forte in the Navy was that of aircraft engine repair and overhaul. So got a job at the Naval Air Station in Alameda, California. We packed up our Ford and we took off for California. And I think when we got there, we had about $85 in our pocket. So anyway, we got an apartment to live in. I went to work for the station, and later Darlene went to work for Kaiser Foundation Hospital. And we lived in California for just about, I think, around 9 years or so. And after Bob was born, then it was a decision that we made that we would move back to the Midwest. So we did. We came back to North Dakota, and I got into law enforcement at that time, and was with the Cass County Sheriff's Department. And about 6 years after that, went into working for the state as a state agent. And then we moved to Minot, North Dakota, and we were warned when we moved there that if the good Lord was going to give the world an enema, that's where he would put the hope. But that turned out to be false, because we found Minot to be really a great town. We established some wonderful friends there. It was a tough place to work. I had 13 counties to cover. We didn't have an agent in Williston at that time, but anyway, be that as it may, we had a good association there, and then from there we moved to Grand Forks for just a short year, trying to get back closer to Fargo, because Fargo was pretty much our home at that time. And we only lived there for about a year, then back to Fargo, and we were there until our retirement in '95. But we've had quite a joyful experience moving all over the country, you might say, and she's been a remarkable little gal, and no matter what she does. She's worked for the Dakota Clinic for several years as a nurse and in administration, and done a very good job there. Also, she was administrator of a large assisted living complex in Fargo Moorhead. There's just been a ton of good things that she's been involved in. So we've had just a great life, and I think now, again, I would just thank all of you for being here. This is a very rewarding day for us. And Kathy, if you would like to expound upon Darlene's traveling with Jasper Theater, that'd be great. So thank you again for coming, everybody.